Hello, welcome back to my channel. I am Flora and I make videos of my real life here in Italy as a straniera, a foreigner. And yeah, I want to show you in this video what is beautiful and what is hard about living in Florence. I will cover roughly 5 topics and why they can be hard. Housing, daily life, bureaucracy, social life and finances. Moving to Florence as a foreigner is a beautiful dream of many, because honestly living here can feel like being inside of a painting all the time. Even on the most ordinary days, going for the tasty coffee, walking at the market, talking with locals, discussing pomodori, doing your laundry, like that famous scene of Una giornata particolare where Sophia Loren hangs out her laundry and the wind dances with it. That makes this ritual alone so beautiful and iconic. There is beauty everywhere, no doubt about that. But it's not an eternal bed of roses. There are some real practical challenges you have to overcome when living in Florence, coming from abroad. In this video, I will talk about my personal experience that is coming from Holland and being a woman in her 30s, moving to the city of Florence, and most importantly, the lessons I've learned here. Let's start with housing. Finding a room or apartment here is competitive, expensive, and often confusing. Contracts can be short-term or long-term. Some landlords don't do registered contracts, some they do. Deposits can be high and not everything is clearly explained. Especially if you're not fluent in Italian, you can have some trouble trying to understand what everything means. That being said, it is not impossible to find a suitable home. I have found all of my places through a website called subito.it and idealista.it. Facebook Marketplace can also be useful for some as well, but in my experience, a lot of people get scammed there. That's always a possibility, but I found more luck in subito.it and idealista.it. I never used an agency because I heard those fees were very high, and I liked the flexibility it gave me when renting via the landlord directly. You can find real gems in those websites. And the beauty is that many times the landlord, they put their phone number so you can just call directly to discuss the house you're interested in. I suggest that you write a little pitch beforehand to introduce yourself properly and to mention some information that Italian landlords are interested in knowing. That is what you do, or how do you earn your income, if you work for a company, if you're a freelancer, if you have a pension, if you're a student, and if you are single, and for how long you need a place. Also, if you smoke or not, and if you have any pets. You do need to understand is that as a tenant, you have a lot of rights here. And I heard horror stories from landlords having people doing their residency there, and once the process was finalized, they stopped paying rent completely, and the landlords could not by law evict them. Understanding this makes you see why they often are hesitant to rent out to the unknown. They are comfortable if you can show you are trustworthy as a person, and as far as financial stability. You learn quickly to ask many questions to understand the whole thing. Read carefully and accept that flexibility is often very necessary. If you are interested, I can make another video about how all things work when you rent a place in Italy. Let me know in the comment section. 2. Daily life works different here. Shops, they close in the afternoon. Make sure to hit that particular store in the morning from roughly 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. They will close probably for lunchtime, and that means there will be quite of a gap between 1 till 3, generally speaking. It can be super annoying if you, for example, travel a bit to get to a store and find it closed. Usually Google will tell you, but even then it can be outdated information. You will get the hang of this, and when in doubt, take this general rule of mornings until 1 or so, and then 3 or 4 till 6 or 7, sometimes 8. Supermarkets in Florence usually close between 8:30, 9 p.m., but you should learn an important word that applies to many situations in Italy, and this word is called dipende, meaning it depends. You will hear this often. I like to think that they use this word if they like to keep things nice and vague, when they cannot promise you anything, but they try to be polite. Another thing is that you have to get used to the fact that things take time. Appointments don't always run on schedule, and when you meet someone and they are on their way, they can send you a message saying arrivo subito, which means that they should arrive immediately, whereas it can also mean they come in 30 minutes. It's not a personal thing, it's just normal, and at first it can feel very frustrating, but over time you either fight the rhythm or you adapt to it. 3. Bureaucracy is another reality. Residency, healthcare, contracts, taxes, none of it is simple. You will need patience, a lot of this, and possibly help from locals, and sometimes more than one. Multiple attempts before something works. It's not impossible, but it's rarely fast. And for example, when I was trying to apply for my residency, I went to the city hall, Comune, and they told me to come back because I did not have the appointment. Even making an appointment was challenging. At the Comune, there's always a man or a woman that is standing at the entrance. I guess they have to filter all the people into categories so they can somewhat run smoothly. And this man told me to make an appointment. And I asked him, come faccio? How do I do this? Because don't expect this sort of information to be mentioned on the website. No. Rather ask it directly to the people. And when I asked, he wrote down a telephone number with a name. In the beginning of my Italian career, this would freak me out because there was no explanation, no clarity. And nowadays, I'm just laughing at scenes like these. It feels like a huge puzzle you have to solve, and there's no one way to solve it. Again, situations like these will be normal for you after some time. I can compare the level of bureaucracy of both Rome and Florence, and I can say that Florence is a little bit more hard, more formal, and in Rome I feel there is a bit more feeling of humanness, if that is a word. But this is my experience. 4. Social life can be slower to build than you expect. The people in Florence are friendly, but real connections take time. They often already have very closed circles, so as a straniera, you need to be intentional and accept that loneliness can be part of the process. Within all of this, it's inevitable that you will feel an emotional distance. This comes also from the fact that you don't speak Italian fluently yet. Yes, you can function and adapt to that Florentine life, but it can take some time to really feel like you belong there. And before that happens, you can have periods of emotional stress and feeling lonely. And by the way, not just in Florence, but in all of Italy, this will be the same issue. When it comes to friendships, especially in Florence, to become friends with the locals sometimes feels like you need some magical social skill to pass the test. In Rome, people are more open, and I hate to say it, more warm and you feel more included because there are already so many nationalities. An older lady sometimes told me that in Rome, everyone is welcome. And you feel that, or I feel that. Coming from Holland, though, Florence feels less intense socially because here it is some kind of natural distance, which feels normal for a Dutch person, which is kind of nice. In Florence, I learned to really practice my Italian and to go to the same bars and shops just to show my face. I remember I had a celebration when a woman asked me in the bar, "Buonasera, you want the usual?" And I could not believe it. In that moment, I felt so recognized and seen, and I didn't feel a foreigner, but almost, dare I say it, one of them. I highly suggest you also take courses of your interests to spend some time with like-minded people. There's always one person that you have a good connection with and can build a friendly relationship with. 5. Finances. Florence isn't cheap and opportunities aren't always stable. Many foreigners juggle freelance work, seasonal income or remote jobs to make it happen. Even though rent in Florence is a tiny bit cheaper than Rome, in my experience, prices for everything else, just to do your living, are a bit more cheap in Rome. For example, in Rome I pay 20 euros per month for public transport. With this card I can use the bus, the tram, the metro and regional trains without limit for 7 days a week. This is an amazing deal, I think, for a big city like Rome. In Florence, the same package costs you 28 euros 50 per month. It might seem a little, but little things add up. For example, groceries at markets, again in Rome is cheaper, also because Florence is smaller, so you have less choice. Eating out, I've noticed that in Florence tends to be a bit more expensive than Rome. Of course, it depends what area you are. Gyms in Florence, less options, so less competition, so higher prices for the abbonamenti. And the flea markets and second-hand store, Rome has way more second-hand stores than Florence, and prices at Porta Portese are very low. They start from €1, which I've never seen in Florence. But the good thing about Florence is that she's much more walkable and quite bike-friendly, so you could leave the public transport aside. Also, Rome is very tempting. At every corner there are bars and places to buy something. In Florence, this is much more subtle and less in your face than the capital, so you have less impulse purchases. But there's another side to all of this. Besides the obvious that makes Florence incredibly beautiful, I think that she has also other things that are beautiful, but maybe not so obvious and more subtle. Life in Florence teaches you to simplify things. That means to live with less and to structure your days around what really matters: food, movement, connection, and rest without getting overwhelmed. It allows repetition, and going to the same bar over and over makes it even romantic, not boring. In Florence, art is not decoration, it's structure. Other cities have Renaissance art. Florence is the Renaissance. Another beautiful thing about Florence is the way that light hits the Arno in the evening. Warm colors, soft and calm, which make room for you to ponder and reflect. This is very specific to Florence. I had some amazing sunsets and sunrises.
Vivevamo di vento, di sale, le onde scrivevano il nostro giornale, con le mani intrecciate parlavamo al cielo. Ogni tramonto un bacio rubato, ogni alba un sogno disegnato.
Another beautiful part of the city is, I think, that nature is so easy to reach, and you can stand in the midst of olive trees and hear the bells of the Duomo without too much travel. Personally, one of my favorite activities when I was living there was to get into nature with my book, some lunch and a blanket. Perfect way to spend your afternoon for an introvert and creative like me. That being said, Florence is not for everyone. If you need, for example, chaos, constant novelty, and a lot of external stimulation, then Florence is definitely not your match. It can feel way too small. But if you do need that coherence, and if you need beauty that doesn't feel too much in your face and embraces you instead of taking over you, maybe a place where you can feel you can slow down and just be, that Florence would be perfect for you. Thank you so much for having watched this video. Maybe you are in the process of moving to Florence or moving to Italy in general. Maybe this video has gave you some insights. I don't know. I wanted to thank you again for watching and hope to see you in the next one. Ciao!